Hi, welcome to my video on solving equations part 3 on the absolute value functions. But this time I'm doing a video that's different for different questions to help you think. And I'm doing different combinations, I'm going to call it. So let's look at number 1, the absolute value function and the power of 2. So I have two of them here, so let's solve each. The absolute value of x squared equals 9. Notice this is not a linear, this is a quadratic because of the power of 2. So let's go through the negative of x squared equals 9, or the positive of x squared equals 9, as I did before. So the negative of x squared is 9, divide by negative 1, that x squared equals negative 9. Because I have an x squared equals negative 9, I'm going to do the square root of x squared equals plus minus the square root of negative 9. Because this is a quadratic, the square root of x squared is x, plus minus the square root of negative 9. The square root of negative 9 is a 3i that we looked at in the imaginary number. I did a unit on imaginary numbers. And the square root of a negative 9 is the square root of a negative 1 times 9, which is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 9. So it's an I times 3, or 3i. Look back on my unit on imaginary numbers. So this is the positive part, so x squared equals 9. Square root of x squared equals plus minus the square root of 9. So x equals plus minus 3. So there's 4 answers to this one, and 3i. And just to check that, but the 3i, I'm going to check it just right here, show you. The 3 is okay. 3 and then minus 3, because 3 squared is 9. Square root of the absolute value of 9 is 9. We put a negative 3 in here. Negative 3 squared is 9. The absolute value is 9. But when I put a 3i in, just watch. When I put a 3i in the absolute value, like this, then that 3 times 3 is 9. I times I is I squared. And I squared is negative 1 in the imaginary numbers. So that gives me negative 9, which is 9. Again, you need to look at the imaginary unit on imaginary numbers. Now we have the absolute value of x all squared is 9. So that means the absolute value of x is equal to, that's the square root of that, is plus or minus the 9. So that means the absolute value of x equals plus or minus 9. So that means that the absolute value of x is equal to 9, or the absolute value of x is equal to negative 9. So this is the negative of the x equals 9, or the positive of the x equals 9. So we're dividing by negative 1. So x is a 1, negative 9, or x is 9. But the absolute value of x is negative 9 is a no-no. So there's no solution to this, because the absolute value is always positive. So again, just look at the difference between these two. I just thought that was interesting to look at those two questions. And that's the same here. What about looking at the absolute value and the square root? Again, I just made these up thinking, how can I do some more questions to make you think? And the absolute value is the negative of the root of x minus 1 equals 2, or the positive of the root of x minus 1 equals 2. And So that means divide by negative 1, x minus 1 equals negative 2. And the square root of a number is never negative, so there's no solution to this. Because no matter what number you put in here, you can't get a negative 2. And this one, we have to square both sides. So that's the square root, so we square. To remove the root, we square both sides. So x minus 1 equals 4. X equals 4 plus 1. X equals 5. So the only solution to this equation is 5. Because the square root of this number can never be negative. And we have b here. Now we got the square root. So this time we got a square root, so we'll square. So the square root squared is the absolute value of x minus 1 equals 4. So the negative of that is equal to 4, or the positive of that is equal to 4. Negative x plus 1 equals 4. Negative x equals 4 minus 1. Negative x is 3. Divide by negative 1. X is negative 3. And x minus 1 equals 4. X equals 4 plus 1. X equals 5. So let's just check the equation just to make sure so you don't get confused. The equation was this. So take 5 and plug in here, and then this is an absolute value now. So plug 5 in, you get a 4. Absolute value of 4 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Perfect. Try negative 3. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. Absolute value of a negative 4 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So these two answers will work. And the absolute value of the square root of x minus 1 equals negative 2. So the absolute value is never negative, so there's no solution to this. The absolute value of no matter what this is, it should always be positive, so there's no solution to this equation. And final page. And when I was thinking about making up some questions, I thought about these. I see these around sometimes when I was teaching. And number 3, A, f of x represents this graph. So this is the graph of a square root function, the ones that we discussed in previous units, but I'm not looking at the equation. I just want you, what is the graph of the absolute value of the f of x on the same axis? So if this is f of x representing here, notice the value when x is 0, y is negative 2. When x is 1, y is negative 1. And so on, like right here. So when I do the absolute value of this graph, I can't have any negatives. So instead of that being a negative 2 when x is 0, it has to be a positive 2. Instead of x when x is 1, y is negative 1, we can't have a negative 1. We can convert absolute value, you got to make it 1. And this one right here, there it is there. This one right here, there it is. So this part here is all right. So I'm just going to shade this with red. The red part is the absolute value of the previous graph, the graph that I had there. And this graph goes down like this. So the graph, instead of being y's being negative, they had to be positive. So the graph is like this, going over through here. So that's the graph, the red. The red is the graph of the absolute value of f of x. And what about, this is a parabola. Now I could get the equation of the parabola, but I'm not worried about that. What is the graph of the absolute value? Well, the absolute value means you can't have any negative y's. So these y's are okay here. these y's right here are okay because they're positive. So I'm going to shade them in as red. And the red, again, is the absolute value. And this part of the graph, this is okay because these y values are positive, so they're not going to change, but these will. So instead of having this negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of having negative 0, negative 6, I have to have 0, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That one. Instead of having 1, negative 5, I got to have 1, 5. So therefore this one is negative 1, 5. And this one is 2, negative 2. So it's 2, positive 2. And how does this look? Well, instead of the graph going down like that, all these values, so take this one is right here. Take this one is right here. So instead of going down here, the absolute value, here's what it looks like. Because you can't have any, when you do the absolute value, you can't have any negative y's. So the red graph is the absolute value of the original g of x. Thought that was interesting to show you that. Hopefully you understand. A few extra questions always helps you to think. And again, if you like my video, click on the like button, the subscribe button, and visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.